To solve the equation log of x to the 1/3 power is equal to the square root of log of x, first I'm going to square both sides to get rid of the square root on the right side. Right, square the left side and square the right side. So what we're going to get is log x to the 1/3 power squared is equal to log of x. Right? Because squaring the square root gives you the inside without the square root. So now notice that the left side is such that the 1/3 power goes down as the coefficient of the log. So in other words, the 1/3 multiplies the log of x. Okay, and also we're going to subtract log of x from both sides. We're going to get minus log x is equal to 0. So now what you're going to do, you will want to have a substitution y is equal to log of x. And you're going to see that that way it will be easy for you to factor. Okay, so you're going to have 1/3 y squared minus y is equal to 0. Multiplying both sides by but there's one little thing, it should be 1/9. Okay, this should have been 1/9 because we're applying the square to all of these two parts. To the 1/3 it becomes 1/9, and then log x is squared. Okay, so 1/9 y squared minus y is equal to 0. Multiplying both sides by 9 means that each of these terms on both sides receives a 9 being multiplied to it, right? So the first one makes the 9's cancel out. It will be just y squared. The second term gets 9 multiplied and minus 9y, and the 0 multiplied by 9 is still 0. Right, so now we can factor this. The greatest common factor of these two terms is y, so we take it out, and then we're going to have y minus 9. As you can see, it factors well. If you multiply this back, you're going to get this. Right, is equal to 0. So that means that either y is set to 0 or y minus 9 is equal to 0, right? So two possible solutions. Y is equal to 0 or y minus 9 is equal to 0, which means that if you add 9 on both sides, y is equal to 9. So we have to check y is equal to 0 and y is equal to 9 into the original equation. But before you do that, make sure that you put this back in terms of the log, in terms of the x. Right? So these two possible solutions that you will have to check mean that you're going to have log x is equal to 0 or log x is equal to 9. But then before you check the x solution, you have to make sure that you solve for x. Right? Solving for x, notice that when you have a log without the base is automatically assumed to be 10. Okay? So the base of 10 means that you can have the 10 as the base and provide the exponent for this base 10, this whole thing, log 10x. And the same thing on the right side, 10 will be the base and the exponent will be 0. So that way we will solve for x, because these three will be cancelled out, they will not be written anymore, and the x exponent will go down. X exponent will go down, and this way you'll solve for x. 10 to the 0th power is 1. Okay, this is one of the possible solutions, but we're going to have to check it into the original equation. Now this one, it solves the same way. The base 10 is such that we have a base 10 and raised to the as its exponent log 10x is equal to same thing, 10 base, the exponent is 9. Right, so that way again this goes out and the x is solved for, it goes down. X is equal to 10 to the 9th. And notice that I'm not writing 10 to the 9th as a long number, precisely 1 billion, because we don't need to write it out. We're going to see algebraically that checking it will be easier without writing it out. So now we're going to have to check. So first we're going to check x is equal to 1. So let's check that. So log of 1 to the 1/3, right? I'm substituting 1 into the x. What is that equal to? Log of 1 to the 1/3 is log to the of 1, right? Because 1 to the 1/3 is 1. Log of 1 is equal to 0. Now let's see if the right side, when we put x is equal to 1 into it, will produces the same thing. Right? The square root of log 1 is the square root of 1. I'm sorry, the square root of 0, right? Log 1 is 0, as we've noticed. So square root of 0, guess what? Is 0. So what does that mean? Both sides give you the same result when x is equal to 1 is plugged into it. Right? So that means that this solution checks. Right? So it means this is one solution. We're not sure if the second one is a solution. We'll have to check it. Right? So let's check the 10 to the 9th into the original equation. So log of, let's say, 10 to the 9th to the 1/3. Now what does this mean? This means this is going to be essentially the power of a power. Right? When you raise to some power the base with raised power, that means the powers will essentially multiply. Right? So it's going to be log of 10 to the power of 9 divided by 3. Right? Because 9 times 1/3 is 9 divided by 3 essentially, which is 3. Right? So 10 to the 3rd power. Notice that now, the same way that we had here 1/3 coming down as the coefficient of the log here, we're going to do the same thing. The 3 will go down and will multiply with log 10. 3 log 10. Now remember, log 10 is such that the base is hidden as 10. It's automatically assumed that if there's nothing written in there, the base of that log is going to be 10. And that means that when you have the same base and the input, the result will be equal to 1. You can check it by realizing that the log 10 to the base 10 is going to be log 10 over log 10. Right? So when you have the input and then you have the number and you have the log of that, the base and the input, you know that it's going to be the log of the input divided by the log of the base, which is this. And as you can see, you can check yourself that it's indeed this result is equal to 1. So even if you forget the rule that when these two numbers are the same, the base and the input, the result will be 1, you can check it this way and you will arrive at the conclusion. Right? So this is equal to 1, right? This is equal to 1. So that means we will have 3 times 1, which is equal to 3. So now let's see if the right side is equal to 3 as well when we check 10 to the 9th x value. Right? So we're going to get log of 10 to the 9th, the square root of that. 9 will go down, right, the same way as the 3 went down here, right? So it's going to be square root of 9 log 10. And notice that when you have the product inside the square root, you can express it as radical 9 times square root of log 10. Radical 9 is 3, right? So 3 square root of log 10. Now we just said that log 10 was equal to 1, right? Because there's that automatic 10 assumed as the base. And when you have the base and the input the same, this whole thing is equal to 1, right? So it's going to be 3 times the square root of 1. Square root of 1 is 1, right? So 3 times 1, so that's 3. Bingo. So these two are the same number. So both sides match, so this is a solution. X is equal to 10 to the 9th is a solution as well. So as you can see, there are 2 solutions in this problem, and both work out. Thank you so much for watching. Hope this was fun. See you in the next video.